World War I was a conflict where death rarely came suddenly. It arrived slowly, through disease, exhaustion, hunger, and fear. Millions of men lived underground in trenches, waiting for shells that could fall at any second. The trenches were not just battle positions. They were prisons carved into mud. Dark, damp corridors where soldiers slept beside rats and the bodies of fallen comrades. And in one of these trenches, in the year 1917, something happened that no official report could fully explain. An entire trench, filled with more than 200 soldiers, vanished overnight. By 1917, the Western Front had become a scar across Europe. Stretching from the North Sea to the Swiss border, it was a broken landscape of shell craters, barbed wire, and shattered villages. Entire forests had been reduced to splintered stumps. The ground itself seemed wounded. British and German forces faced each other from trenches dug only a few hundred yards apart. Between them lay no man's land, a strip of death where movement often meant instant death. The trench at the center of this story had been captured by British forces only days earlier. It was not considered important. It held no strategic advantage, just another muddy line in a war full of them. Approximately 200 British infantrymen were stationed there. Some were barely out of their teens. Others were veterans who had survived years of fighting. A few had already been wounded once and sent back. That night, nothing suggested that history was about to take an unnatural turn. Life in the trenches followed a routine that was both dull and terrifying. Soldiers woke before dawn. They stood on fire steps, watching the horizon for enemy movement. They ate cold rations, cleaned their rifles, and waited. Waiting was the hardest part. Inside this particular trench, the evening passed like many others. Men shared cigarettes. Some played cards by the light of dim lanterns. Others wrote letters home, carefully choosing words that would not worry their families. One soldier joked that the trench felt too quiet, earning nervous laughter. Guards were posted at regular intervals. Listening posts were active. Officers conducted checks. Everything appeared normal. And yet, later investigations would reveal that several soldiers felt uneasy that night, though none could explain why. Shortly before midnight, a dense fog began to form. Fog was common on the Western Front. The damp earth and changing temperatures made it almost routine. At first, no one reacted. But this fog was different. It thickened rapidly, sinking into the trench like a living thing. Visibility dropped to just a few feet. Nearby units later reported that the fog appeared unusually heavy, almost unnatural in how quickly it formed. One sentry would later write, "It wasn't drifting. It was settling, like it was looking for something." Communication between trenches became difficult. Shapes blurred. Sounds seemed muted. Still, no alarms were raised. Normally, fog was dangerous. Enemy forces often used it to launch surprise attacks. Flares would light the sky. Gunfire would erupt. But that night, nothing happened. No shots were fired. Nobody Nazi exploded. No screams pierced the darkness. From nearby positions, British soldiers watched the fog-covered trench disappear from view. It was as if the trench had ceased to exist. Later testimonies described the night as wrong. Not frightening, not tense, just wrong. At first light, the fog slowly lifted. A patrol was sent to check the trench. As they approached, they noticed something strange. No voices, no movement. Inside the trench, the scene was surreal. Weapons leaned against the walls. Helmets rested on hooks. Food tins lay half open. A deck of cards was still spread across a wooden crate. But the men were gone. Every soldier, over 200 men, had vanished. There were no signs of struggle, no bloodstains, no shell damage. It looked as though the trench had been frozen in time, abandoned mid-moment. commanders initially suspected desertion, but the theory collapsed almost immediately. Desertion on that scale was impossible. 200 armed men could not leave without being seen or heard. They would not abandon weapons, supplies, and personal belongings. Search parties combed the area. No footprints leading away. No bodies buried nearby. No signs of capture. German records were checked. No prisoners had been taken. No attack had been launched. The disappearance defied logic. Soldiers from neighboring trenches were questioned. None reported gunfire. None heard shouting. One officer stated, "It was like the trench had been swallowed by the night." Another soldier recalled feeling an intense sense of unease just before dawn, without knowing why. These testimonies offered no answers, only more questions. Military investigators attempted to reconstruct the event. They considered every possibility: a secret enemy raid, a gas attack, a mass breakdown of morale, but no evidence supported any theory. Gas attacks left traces. Raids left bodies. Panic left chaos. This trench showed none of these. The official report classified the men as missing in action, and there the investigation quietly ended. Among the soldiers, whispers spread. Some believed the fog had carried poison unknown to science. Others spoke of underground collapses, though no tunnels were found. A few men spoke of something darker. They claimed the battlefield itself was cursed, that the land had seen so much death it no longer obeyed natural rules. Such ideas never appeared in official records, but they survived in memory. The trench was eventually abandoned, filled in, erased from maps. New soldiers arrived. New battles were fought, but veterans avoided that section of the line. They said it felt empty, even years later. As for the missing men, their families received no answers. Only letters stating that their loved ones had disappeared during active service. No graves. No cloche. War kills in many ways. Sometimes with explosions. Sometimes with bullets. And sometimes it simply erases people. The trench that went silent remains one of the strangest mysteries of World War I. A reminder that even in history's most documented conflicts, there are moments we cannot explain. Moments where the silence speaks louder than any gun. Some battles end with victory. Some end with defeat. And some simply vanish into the fog.